Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for the Legal Service Trust Fund Commission Program Development and Impact Committee meeting. Kim, if you could do the pre-meeting housekeeping.
Okay. Welcome committee members, liaisons, and members of the public to the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission Program Development and Impact Committee meeting. Thank you for joining us. We are using Zoom with the goal to foster a more inclusive environment and effective meeting. If you would like to comment during the meeting, please use the raise hand feature. Please utilize this tool to virtually indicate that you would like to speak in order to help the chair facilitate the discussion. A friendly reminder, this is a video conference. Per Bagley King requirements, all cameras must be kept on during the duration of the meeting. If you're not able to have your camera on, you must indicate a reason for your non-appearance during the meeting. Please be aware of the surroundings behind you. All committee meetings will be recorded and posted to the State Bar's website. Zoom captioning is available. Select live transcript at the bottom of your Zoom screen and then select enable transcript. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Jennifer, can you take roll for us?
Yes. Alakani is absent. Babcock, absent. Campbell.
Here.
Escobedo is absent. Mahoney.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
And our chair, Judge Rosie.
I'm here. Thank you.
So with 4 commissioners present and 3 absent, we do have quorum. I'll go through our advisors and liaisons. Judge Yang is not here. I see Selena and Lauren from LAC. I think Lauren might be in the attendee pool. And then from Judicial Council, we have Melanie Snyder. For State Bar staff, myself, Dwan Nguyen, Kim Wormsley, and I believe in the attendee pool we have some other staff as well who will be presenting later.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, commissioners, for being here so that we can make quorum. Thank you to our liaisons always for being here as well. This is the point in our agenda where we take public comment. As a reminder, public comment should be about something that is an item on our agenda. We will set public comment for 2 minutes. If there's any member of the public that wishes to make public comment, please raise your hand in Zoom and we will call on you and promote you so that we can hear you. Kim, do we have anybody who wishes to make public comment at this time?
Sorry about that. I was on mute. One person has their hand raised.
Okay. You are, looks like we promoted you, so you can go ahead, Julia.
Thank you. Thank you to the Commission for allowing me to speak this afternoon. My name is Julia Scalese, and I'm the Director of Grants at Public Counsel. My comments are related to Agenda Item 4.1. We were not awarded any funding in this round, and we look forward to the opportunity to apply for future CalHFA funding to support the long-standing home preservation services we provide in LA County, where Public Counsel has been at the forefront of foreclosure prevention for decades. Public Counsel understands there are lots of organizations and areas that deserve and should be funded. However, overall CalHFA funding for organizations dedicating to serving LA County stands at only 17% of the total pot, despite the facts that 1/3 of current foreclosures are in LA County, 1/4 of the state lives in the county. Over 1/3 of debt collection actions are filed in Los Angeles Superior Court, and less than 5% respond to those suits. LA County has suffered the highest levels of poverty in the state, and LA has recently suffered one of the worst natural disasters California has ever had, the ramifications of which will be seen for years. We comment today with the aim for equity so that the low-income homeowners of LA County can get their fair share of resources available based on their needs as demonstrated by those metrics. While we understand that some organizations based outside of LA have proposals that include LA County as their service area, we ask the committee to ensure that the state bar keep track of how many people are helped in each county so there can be some data to compare those numbers against the foreclosure rates in the counties. And we request that such data be used to inform future allocations. I thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you for your comment. Kim, do we have anybody else that wishes to make public comment at this time?
Yes, excuse me, one more person.
Hi, Caitlin.
Hello. Thank you so much for hearing my comment. My name is Caitlin Chan. I'm the Executive Director at Legal Assistance for Seniors. I'm also providing comment on agenda item 4.1, the CalHFA funding recommendations. Thank you, of course, for the opportunity. I do understand that there are many complex considerations and priorities involved in these decisions. I just wanted to voice that I was very surprised to see that only 6 new grantees that were not funded in round one were awarded funds, while 11 current CalHFA 2 grantees got significant amounts of supplemental funding, despite already significant awards. I also did not see any other awards providing direct services in Alameda County, with the exception of Bay Area Legal Aid, which is covering 7 different counties with their $1.3 million or thereabouts award. I would also point out that seniors are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of foreclosure, so I don't know that there's a particular consideration in Alameda County for older adults. But I won't take up more of your time. Thank you so much for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Appreciate that. Kim, anyone else?
No one else has their hand raised.
Okay. All right. Thank you to those who made public comment. Moving on to item 1.1 of the report, the chair's report. Just want to again thank you all for being here. As you all know, the role of the PDI committee is to advance the Trust Fund Commission's support for legal aid through new initiatives, innovations, and stakeholder engagement. We have a robust agenda, but one I think that we can get through pretty quickly. We have, of course, our CalHFA 2 grant supplemental funding awards. We'll be hearing about the work that the PDI committee did on that. We're going to talk about the 2027 Legal Aid Leaders Fellowship Grant, the RFP that will be coming out for that with approval of the PDI committee. We're also going to hear an update on the legal aid interagency roundtable work and, of course, the ongoing work from the Legal Aid Justice Technology Collaborative. And thank you to the folks who are presenting on both of those items, as I think we pushed those from our last meeting. And so we look forward to getting an update today and apologize for having to push you from the last meeting. With that, that's everything that I had. Jennifer, is there a staff report that you would like to give?
Thank you, Judge Rosie. Yes, I have a quick update, and then I believe Dwan does as well. So this is a reminder to please volunteer for partnership grant scoring. To do so, commissioners can email either me or Michael Chong. And if you have any questions, you can email me or Michael as well. We currently have 1 volunteer, so we just need 1 more person. Please reach out by March 24, which is next Tuesday. And I'll pass to Dwan now.
I just wanted to provide a quick update. So if you were at the last commission meeting, you probably heard a large portion of this, but around the Community Justice Worker Project, I had reported at the last commission meeting that since the time that this committee, and particularly Judge Rosie and Aaron and Jennifer, who drafted that really detailed letter with a number of recommendations to the legal aid community, that specific working group that had a proposal about community justice worker program. In December, one justice LAC, and Legal Link did file a petition with the Supreme Court, and you heard me update the commission at that week at the commission meeting. The State Bar did file a response to that. The latest update for you all is yesterday. One Justice, LAC, and Legal Link filed a reply. And so we will circulate, actually, if we haven't already, Jennifer will circulate all three of those documents so that you have a little bit more background. But I think the main takeaway that we're waiting right now is pretty much a response from the Supreme Court with more direction on what the State Bar and specifically the Trust Fund Commission's role, and if there's going to be authority for the Trust Fund Commission to move forward to kind of stand up the CJW program. And then I think Selena did mention last time that they're on a concurrent kind of a track is their spot bill to make this give commission statutory authority on authorizing the CJW program. So I think they're moving in kind of parallel tracks. I think I don't want to speak for LAC, but I think the hope is that the Supreme Court comes out with something fairly quickly so we don't miss the boat for the budget ask. And Selena, I don't know if you want to add anything else quickly to that.
I think the only clarification, or I guess addition, is that the legislature will do nothing to authorize a CJW unless the Supreme Court acts. And so the spot bill, the intention would be that it would allow this program. But until then, the spot bill is saying, like, let's continue to move toward a CJW program. They are waiting for the Supreme Court to act. So spot bill will definitely change. If you know spot bills, they don't look the same by the end.
So if there is any update between now and the next PDI or commission meeting, then we will obviously send out, because I know a lot of commissioners have asked to update you all. And again, depending on like what is said in the Supreme Court kind of decision and like timing and all that work, we might need to move forward on like work in between committee meetings or have to call another PDI meeting. It really kind of just depends on the details of what's decided. So I wanted to give you that heads up in case we need to move fairly quickly on some like work items.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn. And thank you, Selena. Yeah, we will absolutely call whatever meetings we need to if that time comes. Great. All right.
May I ask a
yes.
quick question about Jennifer's staff report? Just a procedural clarification on the scoring team for the partnership grant. Do the members of the scoring team need to come from the PDI committee, or can they? Okay, Joanne's shaking her head. So they can be from anyone on the commission. Got it. Because that seemed like a heavy lift for a 7-person committee. But thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, just to clarify, we always throw it out to the committee that did like the scoring rubric, because you're all closest to kind of the new categories, but it doesn't have to be that way. And we actually do open it up when we have a hard time. But yeah.
And I'll just share also that the volunteer is Ken, so we do have representation from the PDI committee already.
Great. All right. Thank you for that. I encourage any commission members who are interested to volunteer for that. Scoring really does help you get a sense of the magnitude of work that is being done in the legal aid community. So I recommend it for folks who have the time to do it. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, item 3.1, approval of our February 6, 2006 minutes, which were circulated. Is there anyone wishing to make the motion to approve the minutes? Vanetta?
Did somebody move?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tammy. Any changes to the minutes? Any questions, comments about the minutes? Great. Seeing none, Jennifer, can we take a roll call vote?
Of course. Alikani is absent. Babcock is absent. Campbell?
Yes.
Escobedo is absent. Mahoney?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Judge Rosie?
Yes.
With 4 yeses and 3 absents, the motion passes.
Thank you. All right, moving along. I don't see Mara on my screen. Can we promote her if she's hopefully in the attendee pool somewhere? But we'll take, next we will take item 4.1, which is approval of the 2025-2029 CalHFA 2 supplemental funding awards. Welcome, San Francisco.
Thank you. Nice to see you all. Thank you for taking the time to join.
We are ready for you, Mara, when you are ready.
Great. Thanks so much. Let me share my screen and we'll jump right in with item 4.1. So this is item 4.1, approval of the 2025-2029 CalHFA Grant Supplemental Funding Awards. As a quick recap, the focus of the CalHFA grant is to preserve home ownership, protect home equity, and prevent homeowner displacement through foreclosure prevention, loan modification assistance, litigation against mortgage service violations, debt collection defense, and related consumer protection services. The client eligibility cap is 150% of area median income. And in terms of preferences, applicants with experience serving clients after natural disasters and or with a focus on serving underserved communities or who plan to develop those expertise did receive funding preference on this grant. The original funding source is the California National Mortgage Settlement Fund. This is AB 130. It became law on June 30th. And last year, CalHFA released $24 million. And that was released in the initial CalHFA grant application process. After that grant was approved, awards were approved at the beginning of November, CalHFA looked at the level of funding that had been requested and doubled the available funding for these legal services. So we're releasing the additional $24 million in two separate categories. This category is the supplemental funding. So it is an additional $10 million on top of the original $24 million that was released at the end of last year. We will be releasing a future CalHFA grant. This is the remaining $14 million, and we anticipate to release that sometime in 2027. Grantees were eligible to apply for the CalHFA funding, regardless of whether or not they had been awarded funds. So organizations that had received funding were able to request funding up to their original CalHFA funding request. So it was the gap between what they had been awarded and what they had originally requested. Applicants that had not received any funding were allowed to request funds up to their original request amount. The grant period for this particular funding is April 1 of this year through June 30th of 2029, but grantees may charge grant expenditures back to the beginning of this year. As a quick recap of our timeline, after the approvals of the awards are made, we would release the budget forms and begin the grant period. Assuming that PDI approves awards today, the budgets would be released tomorrow and due a week later, with the hope that the grant period can start swiftly on April 1. The funds will be dispersed in mid-May, and again, grantees could charge expenditures and services retroactively back to the beginning of the year. In terms of the applications for this supplemental funding, there were 31 applications that proposed services across the state. 16 of them were current CalHFA 2 grantees. 15 were currently unfunded applicants. And overall, they requested $40.6 million, which is roughly four and a half times what is available to disperse. So again, many thanks to the scoring team. It was a lot of real difficult conversations and decisions to be made because the request for funding to provide services in this particular area just far outstrips the funding available even after the grant funding has been doubled. Project funding requests were roughly 35 million. An additional roughly 6 million was requested specifically to support up to 2-year-long fellowships. These are fellowships of recent law graduates that would work to support the work of the organizations. Organizations requested 18 2-year fellowships over the course of the 4-year grant. I'm going to do a quick overview of the rubric. I'm going to go a little quick because I know that we've already gone through this rubric during a previous meeting, but I feel it's important to recap it in advance of the funding decision. The scoring rubric is a tool that we use to evaluate and discuss the applications. High scores do not guarantee funding. There was a total of 85 points possible. 60 of those points went towards the project description, 25 points for the funding preferences, and that was underserved communities and organizations providing services to victims of natural disasters. And the scores in attachment C are reported both in those raw scores as well as a percentage of the total points possible. So here is a breakdown of those categories. The scoring team looked at impact, the administration of the grant, the evaluation process over the 4-year period, and then again, the funding preferences, victims of natural disasters and underserved communities. Overall, there was a possible 90 points because at the end of the discussion regarding the rubric last year, the committee made the decision to add 5 points for special consideration. And so after assessing on the initial 85 points, the scoring team then applied 5 special consideration points for equity considerations to the overall scores. So when you're looking at the ultimate points and the percentages, they are calculated out of 90 points. So percentage-wise, project scores ranged from 85% or 87%, excuse me, to 45.6%. Fellowship requirements were assessed separately. They were not part of the scored rubric. They have their own separate requirements. One of the requirements is that applicants' projects must have scored at least a meets expectations across impact, administration, and evaluation. And then the scoring team looked at the comprehensive and meaningful strategies for recruitment and selection of fellows, the integration of the fellows, and the career development and professional growth and legal aid that the fellows would have access to. So with that preamble, and again, I'm happy to answer any questions on that rubric. These are the overall scores and the funding recommendations that the scoring team developed, and they are included in their entirety in attachment C of the memo. But happy to answer any additional questions at this time.
Thank you, Mara. Before we take questions, I just want to take another minute to thank you, Mara, and Erin for the significant amount of work that you both did in round 1, and then the significant amount of work that was done in round 2, and for the half a dozen thoughtful conversations that we had in making these final determinations. So thank you again. It was not a light lift in any way. So thank you both for the time you spent on that. Are there any questions about the funding recommendations? Not seeing any, although I can, because the screen is still shared, I'm looking. Kim, if you can tell me if anybody's hand is raised, but I don't see anything.
No hands are raised.
Okay. All right. Okay, if there are no questions, then I will entertain oh, thank you. You can go to the next slide. Thanks, Mara.
Yeah, so the resolution as presented today would be, should the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission Development Impact Committee concur, it is resolved that the Program Development and Impact Committee approves the supplemental funding award recommendations for the 2025-2029 CalHFA Finance Agency grant as described herein.
Great. Thank you. Anyone making a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'll move, Vanetta.
Thank you, Panetta. Is there someone to second?
I'll second.
Second, Tammy.
Oh, I couldn't tell if it was Tammy or Aaron, frankly, but
Go with Tammy.
go with Tammy. All right. Thank you both. Jennifer, could we take a roll call vote, please?
Of course. Alikani absent, Babcock absent, Campbell,
Yes.
Escobedo absent, Mahoney,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
and Judge Rosie.
Yes.
With 4 yeses, 0 nos, and 3 absents, this motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners, as well. And thank you again, Mara, for all your work. But don't go away, Mara, because we're going to move to item 4.2 on the agenda, which is approval of the RFP for the 2027 Legal Aid Leaders Fellowship, and that is also you.
It is. I see a hand raised though.
Oh.
I don't know which item it was relating to.
Oh, it's Selena, sorry. Oh, Selena, I'm sorry.
It was for the prior item, and it's just a request, Mara, if you're able, when you do the final listing of the supplemental and the original CalHFA 2 and the supplemental, if there's any way to capture the counties served. I thought in a prior version of the grantee list, it included the counties served. And I think that's helpful for the community because everyone's kind of looking to see which counties got funding. And if you're able, especially for multi-county agencies like Bay Area Legal Aid, having which counties would be funded for the work would be really helpful.
Thank you, Selena. And I think we can probably do that because we certainly had that information available to us when we were making the decisions.
I think that's possible, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure Mara can do that. I believe it is in the meeting packet for today. There's those grantee like snapshots, which has exactly that, the counties that they propose to serve. So you could sort of cross-reference the recipient list to their like 1-page snapshot to see what counties. But yes, I'm sure Mara has a like prettier version of that can be shared.
I think we can put together something shorter.
Thanks, Mara.
Sure.
Thank you, Selena. Okay. All right. Not to add to your load, Mara, but item 4.2.
Item 4.2. So item 4.2 is the approval of the 2027 Legal Aid Leaders Fellowship Grant request for proposals. As a quick overview and reminder, the Legal Aid Leaders Fellowship Program is operational because of the BPC section 614003, and it takes $10 of the $45 opt-out contribution for legal aid on attorney licensing fees to fund summer law student fellowships. It is a competitive grant process that's open to qualified legal service projects and support centers. There is a preference for serving rural and underserved communities and organizations that serve clients regardless of immigration or citizenship status. And these funds are allocated for this purpose at this point through January 30th of 2023. Grantees can apply to fund multiple fellows and are allowed to request up to $10,000 each. A minimum of $7,500 should go towards compensation to the fellow and up to $2,500 for other direct or indirect costs to support the fellowship within the program. Staff project that roughly $1.2 million will be available for the 2027 LALF awards. And this is a very brief overview of the requests and award amounts over the past 4 years. So for this coming 2026 fellowship, we have already, approved awards at the end of last fall. We awarded funds for 122 fellows. There was $1.2 million available, but we had received requests for $2.9 million to support 290 fellows. So another area in which the request far outstrips what is available, but we get really positive feedback from the fellows each year about their experience with these organizations, and organizations that have come back year after year after having supported summer fellows and wanting to do it in subsequent years. So it is a growing program. So for the 2027 RFP, staff are proposing 3 changes. One is to revise the RFP language to clarify the fellow payment requirement. One is to increase the maximum rubric points from 65 to 100 points. And the last recommendation would combine 2 categories in the rubric, one being the impact and the other being organizational benefit category. And these are both part of the selection criteria portion of the rubric. So I'm going to walk through those 3 changes. So in terms of clarifying the fellow payment requirement, the 2026 RFP required at least 7,500 of the 10,000 awarded to be used, quote, solely for compensation, with up to 2,500 for payroll, taxes, benefits, and other costs. We received frequent questions from grantees about whether or not benefits could count towards the 7,500 as compensation. And this signaled to us a need to clarify the language and just make the requirement a little easier on the grantee side, and to ensure equal treatment across each of the fellows in the program. So the proposed new language in the RFP would say that each fellow may be funded up to 10,000, with at least 7,500 being paid directly to each summer law student fellow, and up to 2,500 per fellow being available to cover payroll, taxes, benefits, administrative costs, and overhead, and any other direct or indirect costs associated with the fellowship. The idea is that this change would reinforce the grant's goal of providing meaningful compensation to attract law students to legal aid careers. So the impetus was the questions we were receiving and wanting to ensure that fellows were all receiving into their bank accounts the same amount of funds over the summer fellowship, and just to make this situation clear and equal within the grant program. The second change would be to adjust the total points available on the grant. This would be done by increasing the number of available points within the selection criteria category of the rubric from 50 to 76. Currently, that selection criteria is worth about 77% of the overall score. So by increasing the number of points available to 76, we would be keeping that selection criteria portion of the rubric at the same proportion overall. Funding preferences is currently 15 points, which is 23% of the overall points available. So we would allocate that funding preferences 24 points, which would put it at a 24%, keeping it as close as possible to the original proportion selection criteria versus funding preferences. The purpose is really just to make scoring easier to interpret and align it with other state bar grant programs, which are now allocating points on their rubric up to 100 points. So that is the goal of that change. And the last one would be to combine 2 rubric categories, and they're the top 2 within selection criteria. So impact, which asks applicants to describe the way in which they are utilizing the fellows in appropriate legal work that is aligned with the organization's expertise. And then the organizational benefit, which asks the applicant to describe the larger impact that this funding would have on their organization. And over a couple years, what the scoring teams noticed and the feedback that we received is that reading the applications, applicants were providing very similar, if not identical, responses to these two categories. When describing the impact, they would be describing how they would use the fellows in legal work aligned with their expertise, and they would go on to describe the benefit, which is a very holistic and well-rounded way to respond to that question. And then they would get to the next question and provide the exact same information. So while there was nothing wrong with those responses, it did become redundant because the scoring team was either providing the exact same scores twice, which kind of took away the point of having two separate categories, or they were forced to like combine the two answers and then separate out which portion was impact and which portion was organizational benefit. And either way, it increased the amount of time being spent scoring, even though no additional information was actually being gathered by having these questions separated. So the proposal would combine these into simply an impact category, where we ask applicants to describe the specific legal work the fellows will perform, aligned with the organizational expertise, the larger impact the fellows' work will have on the organization, and how the fellowship will encourage the fellows to pursue a legal aid career. We feel that that would be a more holistic question and might even be easier for organizations to respond to in one sitting, rather than asking them to divide it up between two categories and provide repetitive information. The breakdown of the scores there do reflect the proposed change of the available points to 76. So exceed expectations would be worth up to 19 points for each of those new 4 categories. The other 3 categories would remain the same as we have currently. So I guess I should go back to the previous screen, sorry. I'm happy to answer questions about any of those 3 changes. Otherwise I can move on to the next screen, but happy to toggle back and forth.
Thanks, Mara. Any questions about the changes to the fellowship? I can see no hands here. Kim, can you see anything different than me?
No hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Then Mara, if you want to go to the next screen.
So the resolution would read, should the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission Program Development and Impact Committee concur, it is resolved that the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission Program Development and Impact Committee approves the 2027 Legal Aid Leaders Fellowship Grant request for proposals as described herein.
Thank you. Is there a commissioner willing to make a motion
I'll move
on this resolution?
I'll move approval of the resolution.
Thank you, Erin. Vanetta, did you second?
Yes.
Thank you, Vanetta. Jennifer, if you could take a roll call vote.
Of course.
Thank you.
Alakani, absent. Babcock, absent. Campbell,
Yes.
Escobedo, absent. Mahoney.
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Judge Rosie.
Yes.
With 4 yeses, 0 nos, and 3 absents, the motion passes.
Thank
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you again, Mara, for all of your work on this item as well. Appreciate it. Okay, moving along in our agenda. We are on item 4.3, which is an update on the California Legal Aid Interagency Roundtable work. And I see that we are promoting Elizabeth. Thank you, Elizabeth, for being here. And I know we are ahead of the time you probably thought you were going to be here. So thank you for being flexible.
So thanks for the
Lily?
opportunity to provide an update. Is everything okay?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I can see you on the screen, but I couldn't tell if you were with Mara.
Yes, we're in the conference room together. Okay. So thanks for the opportunity to provide the update on the California Interagency Roundtable work, affectionately known as CLARE. So CLARE is modeled after the Federal Legal Aid Interagency Roundtable, which was housed at the Department of Justice. The goal of CLARE is to improve coordination and encourage partnerships to strengthen the access to justice safety net and provide resources. After working with our co-conveners at the Legal Aid Association of California and Access to Justice Commission, we launched the initiative in 2024 with a convening where we had nearly 24 California state agencies and other stakeholders come together to explore ways to foster collaborations. We had a really engaging event emceed by our very own Judge Rosie, and it brought a lot of great energy and momentum to the work. Interestingly, we also found that cross-agency collaboration was also something that would benefit the community. Following the convening, we formed a working group of CLARE members, and you can see them listed on the slide, and they participated in focused discussions on various substantive issues and discussed future collaborations, including future convenings, funding opportunities, and resource development and referrals. So our next steps are to continue with our working group meetings, plan additional spotlight listening sessions on various substantive areas, plan an in-person convening for later this year, and present on this topic with colleagues in Arizona at the upcoming American Bar Association Equal Justice Conference. So that is my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Questions for Elizabeth on that? I'm not seeing any. I will just say, because I did MC that first in-person convening, and it was the energy in the room was amazing. The work being done in the room is amazing. And thank you to State Bar staff for coming up with this idea and keeping it going and engaging with all the partners. I learned quite a bit, and a state employee that I didn't know was going on in other agencies. And so I encourage you all to keep up the incredible work that has come out of that. And I'm glad that you're presenting it at the Equal Justice Conference. I think that there are a lot of folks who are going to be able to benefit hearing about the work that you've done and the way that the needle has been moved. So thank you.
Thank you.
To both. Okay, moving on to item 4.4, an update on the Legal Aid Justice Technology Collaborative. And MJ.
Hello all, it's good to be with you. Okay, let me just set up my share screen. Hang on one sec. Are you all seeing my slides? Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So good afternoon. Thank you for having me here today to present on the Legal Aid Justice Tech Collaborative. I'm very excited to share some updates with you on the work that we've been doing. Just some background on myself. So I joined the State Bar to oversee this initiative in November. Prior to that, I was with the Legal Services Corporation with their Technology Initiatives Grants team. I was a program officer there.
I'm sorry, MJ. I think we're seeing the reverse of your screen, actually.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Like you could see my meeting notes, you mean? I don't actually have any, but let me see. Let me try this another way. still?
Yeah.
I can just see the next slide, it looks like. I don't know what other commissioners can see, but.
Or we could keep it on just the other screen sometimes.
Yeah, you can put it on the other one.
Put it on the other one and
MJ,
just
that's
scroll
fine.
through. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
That work?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, there you go. There
That's
you go.
perfect.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
That's
cool.
perfect.
Look at me go with the tech. As I was saying,
As the lead of the digital transformation.
I know you would hope I could run a slide deck. So I was at LSE, like I was saying, with the TIG team, the Technology Initiatives Grants team for a bit. Prior to that, I was a direct legal services provider in DC. I ran a medical legal partnership there, and also I supported efforts in DC to create a coordinated intake system. And prior to that, I was at Legal Service Corporation for a different role, but during that time, I was also working on some different tech projects. So I've been in this space for about a decade now. Just a reminder, refresher on how this initiative came to be. It really came about through requests for assistance from grantees. So we're grantees who are asking the State Bar, how do we use tech? How do we leverage tech? And the State Bar responded with a pretty robust plan of surveying grantees, doing some pilots, and eventually forming a working group and hiring a consultant to develop what turned into the Legal Aid Justice Tech Collaborative. And this work really came into being in a more practical way with my hiring this past November. Oh, and just in case anyone's interested, up on the screen here, there's a QR code. This links to the work plan that was approved by the committee last November or October. So now more on the work that I'm doing. The work kind of falls into 5 big categories. One is supporting baseline tech adoption. Baseline tech meaning just very basic technology infrastructure. So basic cybersecurity things, basic tech infrastructure, phones, computers, etc. Also training and technical assistance. Creating a centralized hub, a website for technology resources for State Bar grantees, building capacity for responsible AI adoption at our grantees, and fostering community and leadership on legal aid tech initiatives. And now I'm going to go through each of those in a bit more detail. So on supporting baseline tech adoption, in this age of AI, we just really want to stress to folks before they even jump into AI exploration how critical it is to have baseline tech infrastructure in place. And a big part of this is around having proper cybersecurity protocols and systems in place. So to that end, I am working on identifying free and low-cost cybersecurity tools for our grantees to consider. And in addition to that, we are exploring in the Office of Access and Inclusion a statewide program to support cybersecurity among State Bar grantees. What this would likely look like is a program similar to what the Legal Services Corporation offers for its grantees, which is a national program. It's called Know Before, and it's just an annual cybersecurity awareness training. And with LSC administering it, it helps save costs, and it also helps ensure that their grantees are getting the cybersecurity training that they need. So that's more of a long-term plan, but it's something that we're looking into. On the training and technical assistance front, we are continuing our successful webinar series. I just recently rebranded from the Tech and Legal Aid workshop series, so just now calling it the LAJTC workshop series. But through this series, we've been able to highlight a lot of successful projects across the state with different uses of technology by our grantees and other attorneys who are working with low-income communities. And so that is still going to continue, like I said. It's on the second Wednesday of every month. Our next one will be on Wednesday, April 8th, and we have a really cool presentation from a solo practitioner who does immigration law. His name is Mark Santamaria, and he was actually recommended by a staff member from one of our grantees, and he created a really cool AI tool that helps folks who are going through immigration process to do interview prep. He realized that a lot of his clients had a lot of anxieties about going through immigration interviews, and he didn't always have capacity to do multiple rounds of practice interviews. So he set up this tool so that folks could be able to practice on their own. Really cool stuff. I'm really excited about that presentation. And then another piece of technical assistance work that I'm really focused on is providing one-on-one technical assistance to state bar grantees. This can include really anything tech related. So concerns that folks are having, solutions they may want to explore, different project ideas they want to explore. I've already received a lot of interest in getting this support. So I've probably met now with about a dozen of our grantees since I started, and have been having some ongoing conversations about different ways that they could leverage tech to address some of the issues and challenges that they're experiencing. And then finally, on this slide, I'm creating a centralized resource that will house different tech resources and tools for our grantees to consider and use as they build out their tech capacity. So I'm hoping to have this website up ideally within the next month. I'm currently working on it right now. This will include recordings and materials from all of the webinars that I mentioned. It will also include toolkits, both ones that I'm working on developing, as well as toolkits that already exist, and then links to other external resources that folks put out, primarily resources from Legal Services Corporation and the Legal Services National Technology Assistance Project, which is a grant program of LSC. Next on building capacity for responsible AI adoption. The big project here that I'm focused on currently is creating a AI readiness tool. It includes both a maturity model and a risk framework. So what does that mean? So a maturity model really is a tool that allows grantees to see where they fall in terms of their AI capabilities. So it kind of walks through what different stages of AI readiness look like, starting with someone who's at the learning stage, who really doesn't have any exposure to AI, has not really been experimenting with AI tools, to someone more in an experimentation role, so just getting used to it, getting a lay of the land, all the way up through someone who is more of a leader, a trailblazer in this space. And it's really meant to be a practical tool that will help grantees figure out A, where they are now, but B, how they can take next steps if they're interested in expanding their use of AI. In addition to that AI tool, which the timeline for that will likely be released late spring, early summer. We're also promoting different AI tools through the webinar series that I mentioned. We're continuing to explore ways to support grantee testing of AI tools, building off previous pilots that OA and I conducted. We're identifying potential funding sources for innovative AI projects at our grantees, and we are also supporting OpenAI grant recipients. For those unfamiliar, OpenAI recently awarded some pretty significant grants to nonprofits, 3 of whom were our grantees. Legal Aid, Society of San Bernardino. I can never remember if it's Legal Aid Services or Society for pretty much every legal aid program. But LASSB, California Rural Legal Aid Foundation, Rural Assistance Foundation. I'm too steeped in the acronyms. I have to memorize the full names. And also the Youth Law Center. So they have some really cool project ideas, and the State Bar is working on supporting them with those. And then lastly, we're working on fostering community and leadership to really create a culture of support around technology work. So this includes forming an advisory panel for the LAJTC. This will be composed primarily of grantees, but will also include folks from the commission. There will be an ask in the next slide for you all. And also other subject matter experts from the state, likely folks from universities. We are launching AI Champion Network. I'm very excited. We have our first cohort of folks. Includes, let's see, Pablo Ramirez from Legal Aid of San Bernardino, Crisel Reguro from the LCC RSF. Can someone from State Bar help me out on that one?
The
Thank you.
Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights of San Francisco.
Thank you. Charmaine Laxina from Open Door Legal, Susan St. Vincent from Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, and Alegria de la Cruz from California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation. So that group, one, we just really wanted to highlight folks who are doing heavy lifting in this space already. They're really some of the trailblazers around implementing AI in legal aid context. But two very practical things we're looking for their support on. One is providing feedback and guidance on the AI tools I'm developing. I really want to make sure that everything that we put out is grounded in a grantee perspective. And these are folks who really have strong subject matter expertise after implementing AI internally at their organizations. And then in addition to that, providing peer-to-peer mentoring. So when there's a legal aid org who wants to pilot a new AI tool, being able to work with someone directly who is also in the legal aid space and has done something similar at their organization. So we'll be building out the programming for the Champion Network throughout this year. And then lastly, as I've already mentioned, we're just convening community through our monthly workshop series. We usually on average have about 50 folks from the community attending these calls. Okay, so first, are there any questions that folks have about anything that I've discussed?
I don't have any questions, but just a comment that this is so outstanding and exciting. As former executive director of a small support center with very little administrative infrastructure, only a part-time contracted IT person who I think promised us 1.5 hours a month of his time. I mean, we're talking very, very little tech support. To have a resource like this is just really a game changer, I think, especially for the smaller organizations. So I'm just really excited. I wish you were around and this was around when I was an executive director, but I want to thank you very much for engaging in this with the grantees.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I really say to every grantee who I have these technical assistance calls with that, think of me as a free consultant, as another member of your team. That is why I'm here. I really want to be a resource and I really want to help folks out. Is there anything that folks thought might be missing from my plans? Okay, and then the big question, are any of you interested in participating in the advisory panel to oversee this initiative? And just to give you a sense of what this may entail, I don't imagine this is going to be a heavy lift. I think it will likely be meetings once every couple of months. And it's really just to, I think, help kind of steer the direction of the initiative, make sure that we're on the right track, and then just provide kind of tangible, practical feedback on the different tools that we're developing and putting out.
MJ, can I add just a little bit more?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So I really wanted to thank the members of the committee who served on the LAJTC working group that helped put forward the work plan that MJ is now really, really building off of and doing this great work off of. So that working group, as you know, has ended. So we kind of see this as a second iteration, but as MJ said, a much lighter lift.
If you can you hear me?
Yeah.
If you, I'm happy to join. I think I was on the planning committee. I guess that would be called back. When it just started. If you want a new perspective, I'm happy to defer to other commissioners. But if you need someone, I'm happy to participate on the panel.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And we don't mean to put anybody on the spot. So the other option is Jennifer can email, because there are a couple committee members that aren't here right now. We can email out, and then if there's any interest, the other option is to go to the wider commission too, but we wanted to give the PDI a chance first since it's coming through you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just a quick comment, Judge Dorsey. Sorry, I might consider volunteering. I just feel like I'm so interested and energized by this, but I am like such a tech Luddite. Like I feel like I have nothing to offer. So that's my main hesitation of like, it sounds good to me. Like keep going. So I don't feel like I would be the most constructive member of that particular work group.
I will actually like gently push back. I think that it's very helpful having somewhat of an outsider perspective, and I think particularly your experience being the ED of a small legal aid organization makes you uniquely qualified to provide some insight and support. Because for example, like as I'm building out this AI tool that I mentioned, one of the things I'm thinking about is like, is this actually going to be actionable for a small organization? And I think having your perspective, for example, to say, hey, this is what would make this far more practical for a similarly situated organization would be, I think, really helpful. So if you're down, I'm down.
Well, thank you for saying that. Let me give it some thought, and maybe I can politely ask Jennifer, if you don't hear from me in a few days, ping me as a reminder.
Will do.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you both.
Thank you, MJ. We are so excited to have you on board. And I was part of that original working group as well. And to now see an actual State Bar, staffer doing the work we envisioned many, many, many months ago is, Jennifer worked her butt off on this as well. Just to have somebody on board now to do this work and to see it come to fruition is amazing. And so thank you. We're
I'm excited to be
thrilled
here.
to have
And thank
you.
you again for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Of course. Okay. Folks, that appears to be the end of our agenda. Is there anything that questions that commissioners had that we didn't get to, or anything else from the commissioners? Seeing none, then I'm going to give you almost an hour of your day back and go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you all again for being here. Thank you for your quick work. Thank you for the commissioners for making quorum so that we could vote on these very important matters. And if you want to volunteer for anything, reach out to Jennifer or Juan, and they will make sure that your information gets passed on. And thank you again to our liaisons for coming. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.